You scroll through your feed and see another day in the life video where someone your age just bought their second rental property. Meanwhile, you're calculating whether you can afford both groceries and gas this week. Your parents bought their first house at 25. You're 28 and wondering if you'll ever move out of a shared apartment. And somewhere deep down, there's this quiet voice that whispers, "What's the point of even trying?" If that lands a little too close to home, you're not alone. An entire generation is staring at the future like it's a locked door with no key in sight. But here's what's fascinating, and maybe a little unsettling. The hopelessness isn't just about economics or world events. There's actual psychology at play here, specific patterns and mindsets that trap people in a cycle of despair. And once you see them clearly, you might just recognize yourself or someone you care about. So let's pull back the curtain on why so many young people feel like the future is cancelled before it even begins. First, let's talk about the ones caught in what psychologists call learned helplessness. Picture this: you apply to 50 jobs. 50. You customize each cover letter, you network, you do everything right. Radio silence. Or worse, those auto-rejection emails that arrive 2 minutes after you hit send, like your resume got filtered out by a bot before a human even glanced at it. You try to save money, but rent goes up. You budget carefully, then your car breaks down. You work hard at your job, and they hire someone's nephew for the promotion you deserved. After enough of these experiences, something shifts in your brain. You stop seeing the point of effort. It's not laziness, it's a psychological defense mechanism. Your mind learns that nothing you do matters, so why exhaust yourself trying? This is learned helplessness in action, and it was first discovered in lab experiments where animals stopped trying to escape pain even when escape became possible. When young people see generation after generation of effort leading nowhere, watching their parents work themselves to exhaustion and still lose their homes in 2008, seeing their older siblings drown in student debt despite doing everything right, their brains make a logical conclusion. The game is rigged, and you're not meant to win. The cruelest part? These people often want to hope. They're not nihilists by nature. But every time they reach for optimism, reality slaps it out of their hands. So they settle into a kind of numb acceptance. Not peace, mind you. Just resignation. And if you've ever caught yourself saying, "It is what it is," with a hollow laugh, you might be further into this pattern than you realize. Then there's another group entirely. The ones drowning in what we might call comparison despair. Social media has turned everyone's life into a highlight reel, and you're watching it all unfold in real time. Your high school classmate is traveling through Europe. Another friend just got engaged in a proposal straight out of a romance film. Someone you barely knew is launching their third startup. And you're eating cereal for dinner and wondering why you can't seem to get your life together. Here's the psychological trap. Humans are hardwired to compare themselves to their peers. It's an evolutionary mechanism that once helped us assess our standing in the tribe, but now the tribe is every single person on the internet. Your brain doesn't distinguish between your actual neighbor and some influencer in Dubai. It just knows that other people your age are apparently thriving, and you're not. The neuroscience here is brutal. Every time you see someone succeeding in a way you're not, your brain's reward centers dim just a little. Do this hundreds of times a day, which is exactly what social media enables. And you've essentially trained your brain to associate your own life with inadequacy. You're not comparing your behind the scenes to their behind the scenes. You're comparing your struggle to their carefully curated victory montage. The hopelessness sets in because it feels like everyone else got a manual for adult life that you somehow missed. They know the codes, the shortcuts, the secrets. Meanwhile, you're just trying to figure out how they're all affording therapy and that Bali trip. It's not that you can't be happy for others. It's that their success becomes evidence of your failure, and that's an exhausting way to live. But perhaps the most insidious pattern is what I call future fatalism. The people who've absorbed so much doom and gloom that hope feels almost irresponsible. They'll tell you about climate catastrophe, economic collapse, political breakdown, the coming AI apocalypse. And look, they're not wrong about the challenges. The world is facing unprecedented crises. But here's where the psychology gets interesting. These individuals have often merged their identity with catastrophe. Being aware of problems becomes their entire personality. They're the ones who can't enjoy a sunset without mentioning rising temperatures. Can't celebrate a small win without adding, before civilization collapses anyway. This is actually a defensive mechanism too. If you convince yourself that disaster is inevitable, you never have to face the vulnerability of trying and failing. You never have to risk disappointment. You've pre-grieved the future, which feels like control. I knew it would all fall apart, offers a grim comfort that I tried my best and it didn't work out. Never could. The psychological term here is defensive pessimism, taken to an extreme. A little bit of it can be adaptive. Preparing for worst-case scenarios is smart. But when it becomes your default lens, you filter out any evidence that contradicts the doom narrative. Good news becomes suspect, progress becomes invisible, and hope becomes something that happens to naive people who just don't understand how bad things really are. What ties all these patterns together is something psychologists call an external locus of control, the belief that forces outside yourself determine your outcomes. And when you look at the actual structural barriers young people face, unaffordable housing, stagnant wages, crushing debt, a warming planet, it's not paranoia. Many things genuinely are outside individual control. But here's the cruel paradox. Even when external forces are real, surrendering all sense of agency makes those forces even more powerful. Hopelessness becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Not because you could actually bootstrap your way out of systemic problems, but because the absence of hope prevents you from seeing or seizing whatever small opportunities do exist. So, where does that leave us? Maybe you recognize yourself in one of these patterns. Maybe you're a mix of all three. Maybe you started this video feeling one way, and now you're sitting with something heavier. Or maybe something's clicked into place that you couldn't name before. The truth is, young people's hopelessness isn't irrational or weak. It's a reasonable psychological response to genuinely difficult circumstances. But understanding the mechanisms behind it, the learned helplessness, the comparison trap, the defensive doom scrolling, that's the first step toward loosening their grip. Which pattern resonates most with you? And here's the harder question. What would you need to believe about the future to risk hoping again? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this analysis hit differently than you expected, consider subscribing, because understanding the psychology behind how we think might just be the beginning of thinking differently.